Hey guys, your semi-savvy political host, Ivy Kaufman here. We thought we'd play you a little bit of Trump says, Trump lies. Here we go. Can you imagine he's going to lie again tomorrow? I guess if the sun shines, he will. We all want him to go, don't we? He's a liar anyway. What's he going to do? Huh? What'd you say? Lie again tomorrow? All right, guys, we assume you kind of get the gist of that. Oh, thank you. Like sort of a little round of applause like that. And before we get cracking on the old Democracy Radio Network, Abby Kaufman show with your somewhat politically savvy host, Abby Kaufman, I want to take a minute to chat about some of the local policemen and some of the, well, let's put it like this. I'm older guy, gray hair, right? I'm coming back from the gym. It's about, I don't know, 6 o'clock. It opens at 5. I get there at 5 and leave at 6. And I'm going down Coast Highway from Huntington Beach back to Newport. And I barely cross the Newport line, and the blue light comes on. No siren or anything, but the blue light comes on. And I'm like, so I pull over, of course. And I'm like, officer, did I do something wrong? I'm 50 miles an hour in the right lane, the speed limit, the whole deal. And the guy says, did you know your license plate light was dim? Like, can't say that I did. Happy to get it fixed. Tell me what I can do. I'm a good citizen. Let me see your license. Like, here it is. You want my registration and proof of insurance? No, your license will be fine. So apparently he, walks back to the old, you know, invincible police car that's built like God knows what to patrol the tough streets of Newport Beach. And so he comes back and says, I'm going to give you a ticket for this. And I just looked, and I know better than didn't say a whole lot. Uh, so it's like 2 days before my birthday, and the policeman pulls, and he obviously knows he's got my driver's license, and he couldn't just say, please get it fixed, or I mean, it's a license plate light bulb. I mean, God only knows what imminent danger he was saving me by stopping me. Uh, but I think, and my brother was a fairly successful criminal defense attorney, and apparently that's what they call a pretextual stop. So they pull somebody over some minor infraction, like maybe a dim license plate light bulb, hoping to stumble into something that they might be a little more proud about, chatting at the police clubhouse at the police station. Because if that's the most exciting thing the guy did, he might not bring it up to his colleagues. So anyway, make a long story even longer, the license plate bulb replacements were like $20. I got the brightest ones I could get. I get it somehow. I managed to put it in myself, which is a real feat, without drawing blood. That was the key part. And so anyway, I go to the courthouse, and they say, "Oh, we're closed. It's 4 o'clock." I'm like, "Oh, I thought you were open until 5." No, we close at 4. Okay. And the security guy, whatever you call him, was on duty. And he says, if you or me, this ticket has to be signed off on. And we know you're a day or two late, but go get it signed off and, come back in the morning. So I go, so he says, the reason you want to do that and go to the local highway patrol is that if they do it and inspect it, whatever it is, the court does it, it's $25. And if the California Highway Patrol does it, it's free. So thanks to Siri, I navigate my way to the Highway Patrol and go. Then there's a kid who's in front of me, and then this, woman agent comes out, and I tell her why I'm here. And she's like, okay, and starts telling me things that are wrong with my car that she can see. And so we go outside, turn the lights on. I turn the lights on. Okay. And as I'm getting out of the car, she comes from like the trunk to the driver's window, and I'm like trying to get out of the car. I'm like, I have no idea what you're looking for, but I'm kind of like to get out of my car and get this thing over with and go. So we go back inside, and she signs the thing and says, "Oh, don't forget your license plate cover is a little dark." And I'm like, I've known this car for 26 years, no, 20 years, and it's been there ever since. But if it's illegal, then of course I am more than happy to be a good citizen and comply, play by the rules. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the guys that make nice little piece of change, I'm sure, in Newport Beach, risking their lives, putting their very lives at risk so that I don't drive around with a dim license plate light bulb. And so the moral story was I, paid my $25 fine, and it only took me 2 trips to Westminster, $30 worth of gas, and on and on and on. But moving right along, the point is that the inherent police power of a state is, it's a pretty big deal. And the theory is that a state, the political boundaries, whether they be city, county, state, whatever, have the right to make laws for the welfare of the citizens. Okay. But what happens when those definitions start getting a little out of whack? I think you kind of see the direct parallel to that. But anyway, so let's say a state is a box, like some Midwestern state, and it's, I don't know, 100 miles square, 100 miles each direction, whatever, 100 square miles. And, this is, I don't know, Abbeytown. So, and in Abbeytown, we're going to have no alcohol establishments. You can't sell it. It can be a dry county. Well, that's probably a good many people out right there, but they have the right to within, of course, constitutional limits, to say what goes on within their borders. And when you think about the word jurisdiction, and that usually means the area over which a court has authority, like is it a state court, city court, how much authority does it have? And so what happens is, there are, like I said, there's always some people that push the limit here, but the word jurisdiction itself it comes from Latin, and juris is law, Latin for law, and diction is the Latin word for words or speech. And so the word jurisdiction literally means that where the court has authority to speak, where the court has authority to judge, where the court has authority to try. And so I didn't really mean for this to sound to be a little political lecture, but what brings it into focus is that I think if any phrase can be applied to Trump's second term, it is an experiment in what happens when the president decides to ignore the founders, the Constitution, and the law. Okay. Does that sound like pretty much where we are? I think you'd agree with me. So in the meanwhile, back at the ranch, uh, Trump just he's he's not he's raging at his people because he's flailing inside. He has no idea how to get out of the Iran conflict or war. He's not wired for diplomacy, and the Iranians are pretty resistant people. So you've got this moronic president, threatening to wipe out civilizations, which is a war crime in and of itself. And I kind of have been posing this question lately to my like two, or not even friends, two acquaintances that voted for Trump. And the question I asked was, what after January 6th did you need to know to not vote for him? I mean, let's say we give him a pass on 34 counts of fraud. Let's say we give him a pass on, and my favorite deal, by way of illustration, is the Stormy Daniels testimony. Stormy, God bless her soul, and she's on the road as a comedian, so go see her. I mean, she took one for the team on this one. So anyway, Stormy's on the witness stand, and she's answering questions like, what color underwear did he have, and does his penis have any unique characteristics or distinctions or shapes, or how was his performance in bed, so on and so forth. And like I said, Stormy is pretty unfiltered. She just kind of says, and I say, God bless her. So then Trump gets on the stand, and the substance of his entire testimony is, never saw before in my life. I'm sorry, but doesn't that just juxtapose everything that you still don't believe? It's right there in front of you guys. And now look where we are. Fired all the really good people from the Department of Defense. We were never an aggressor nation. We have no business having a Department of War. I mean, if Washington wanted a Department of War, he'd have had one. But so this is the guy that is just that they had to lock out of the Situation Room because he was such a panic and started screaming at everybody when the Air Force pilot got shot down in Iran. And like I say, if that's, I want to just kind of touch briefly on this Pope thing, not the Pope thing, but the Jesus-like images of Trump in the white robe and the red shawl and the glowing orb in his hand. I mean, they spent whatever free AI they could get. So anyway, of course Trump says, no, that's not me, it's Jesus, that's me, as a doctor helping people. So aside from insulting the intelligence of the American public yet again, you have this guy and he's done it a few times, with allusions to him as Jesus. And I'm like, how does that work? It's funny when my friends talk about the resurrection, the second coming, and all that. I'm like, Jesus didn't do such a good job the first time. Look what we got. I don't know if a repeat performance is called for. But I digress. And so anyway, this moron who's and I'm gonna tell you, I can tell you the reason Trump considers himself Jesus is because, hold on to your hats, people have been telling him that he is Jesus. Can you believe that? They have been telling the guy that he's like Jesus, and that because Jesus had died and was resurrected, it made it possible for him to lead us out of the spiritual wilderness. I'm like, are you insane? This is the guy that got nailed for sexually harassing women, not to mention the 34 guilty count fraud trial. But he's, and the only uh, explanation I can come up with. Oh, and by the way, this is clearly only a far right phenomenon that's slowly creeping in. And I mean, I've got a friend who's successful older guy, and truth of the matter is he hates Trump, hates everything he does, but he's just so conditioned to voting Republican. He has no other cognitive way to handle this. It just wouldn't occur to him. And I keep suggesting that that in light of the foregoing, not to mention the 6 or 7 bankruptcies, one of which was a casino, uh, that he might not be the financial wizard he's painted himself out to be. Now you clearly believe it. The problem with that is it just ain't true. And I make this point all the time that there can be two sides to a story, but usually they're not equal. I mean, and by the way, I've never been a juror. I always get thrown off, but I've watched a few trials, and you can assess people's credibility fairly quickly, and and while we're talking about credibility, how about the statement that Trump is an incredible president, such that he's not credible and you can't believe a word he says? That sounds pretty incredible, right? So let's roll up our sleeves, everybody, and get to work and join your local Democratic club. Find who's running in your city council race and support them, and get involved in some way. It's all hands on deck time. And we'd like to hear what you have to say. So give us a call at 949-629-3820. And Pacific time, we're here in our undisclosed location on Newport Harbor again. And today, I didn't really delve into the headlines too much. I figured you guys had suffered enough yesterday. But I always like kind of comparing the front pages and kind of the editorials of the New York Times and the Financial Times. The Financial Times is obviously the European viewpoint, and the New York Times is the unofficial, it should be the official paper of the United States. Their reporters are great. They don't print lies. If the Times prints it, you can pretty well take it to the bank. And those guys fact check or verify stories 8 ways from Sunday, and you kind of know that the New York Times is really great because of how many times they're referred to by President Orangutan. I mean, anyway. Let's keep going here. How about this? The U.S. begins its first steps to refund $166 billion taken for illegal tariffs. Now, that's $166 billion. I don't know what the interest rate on that is, but I wouldn't mind having it in my bank account for a millisecond. So we are beginning to refund. Now, I've heard that for businesses that have filed claims, if you're a fairly savvy guy, you can do it in minutes, or a savvy person, you can do it in minutes. If you're a bit more technologically limited, it'll take you hours or days. Oh, but that's not the best part. The best part is you really don't know when you begin the refund. 2 months, 6 months. I think that's the general target. But once again, we have an incredible president with an incredible cabinet, with an incredible Senate, an incredible House congressional representatives, and they all lie for money. There's I doubt anybody remembers the old Superman stuff. But Superman used to have this thing about truth, justice, and the American way. I don't. I'm kind of wondering what happened to that. It's not. Aren't they really simple ideals? tell the truth, not unlike the founder George. Cannot tell a lie. Chop down the cherry tree, Washington. Uh, Next up, I think, was Honest Abe Lincoln, and we have our leaders and countries have always presented things in the light most favorable, and whether that's bending the truth or breaking the truth is up for you to determine. But as a general proposition, this is the most incredible administration in history. Oh, you always. Oh, and I do think he deserves the Corrupt President of the Year award internationally. I don't know if he's got a whole lot of serious competition. Uh, and at the end, this is year one in a few months, and he's made a few $1 billion in 14 months, 16 months, and I have no idea how many. What's that, like $200 million a month or something to average? So he's not been lazy in the old Donald Trump department, but and I keep coming back to the word ignorant and ignore and all that. And the excuse was I never thought the Iranians would close the Strait of Hormuz. I never thought they'd attack the Gulf neighbors. The truth of the matter is, it was all gamed out and presented. He's just got the attention span of a pistachio. And, it's not, it's funny, his decisions don't impact himself. So, of course, what's the harm if, a few people die here or there? Whether theirs or ours is, inconsequential to him. I still have nightmares thinking about our bomb that took out the girls' school in Tehran. We're obviously not better than that now, but we were better than that until now. And I look at the bond holdings and interest rates, and people no longer stand in line for our debt issuance, our debt securities. People have started to doubt whether the United States can and will pay its bills on time. Okay? And all the stuff starts, the thing about the fish rots from the head, it all filters down. What trickles down is the sleaze and the just the utter corruption of buying politicians. And it's not just that they buy politicians. It's that just, Trump has got a speak for sale sign on him. Always has and always will. He will do anything for money. I am convinced that the most dangerous place in the United States is between Donald Trump and a dollar. I don't think that's any place I would really want to be, with that 6'7" 300-pound wall of Jello. It's not like the guy has a backbone to keep anything straight. And like he doesn't, for you, nobody else matters. So, hey, and of course, Congress has the power to declare war on the Constitution. But Congress posed an interesting question because Congress has legislates budgets. They have the power of the purse. And so a congressional committee asked, how much are we spending here? And the standard Trump answer is, I'm not going to tell you. Make me, And, when people aren't forthcoming with information that you have a right to, his character is on display. Character is on display every day with each and every one of us. And what we say, what we do, how we follow through. Do we treat people with respect, or do we just kind of, walk all over them? What do we do? How do you see things these days? And I'm also really curious to know how gasoline and other prices are affecting everybody. my $100 fill up is now $125. And instead of $400 a month, I now spend $500 a month, $6,000 a year. And I don't drive very far. I mean, I don't. So, like I said, at the beginning, middle, and end of the day, you've got a guy that doesn't believe in accountability for him, but believes in holding everybody else to an unreasonable standard. And my one of my favorites with this is the Biden crime family. I mean, that was just, it was like a perfect marketing phrase for the campaign. And look around now and tell me, how do even if you don't consider a criminal, it's still illegal. It still violates the Constitution. You're not supposed to make money off the presidency. And that's kind of the long and short of it. But on a policeman's ball scale, that's what getting contributors to give you a gajillion dollars as a donation is about. They're not buying you. Oh, heaven forbid. It's a contribution. I don't want anything back from my 10 mil towards the Trump Library. And if you believe that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some land for sale in Florida. I'll show you when the tide goes out a bit. So anyway, a little Florida swamp real estate humor there. Your old semi-savvy political host has been a little dry lately, so we got to indulge in a little drinky-winky periodically. And you have no, at least I have no reason to fear it will rarely be an adult beverage. I really don't drink adult beverages, but God, I would love to. Okay. Moving right along from the Times, we've got two kind of related headlines. Mourning the dead in southern Lebanon, and Pakistan tried to rein in the Shiite anger over the war. Now, the Shiite Muslims and Sunni Muslims, and the Shia, as my recollection goes, are the more radical ones. And I was on a little spiritual journey a couple of years ago, and I went to the local mosque, and I went to the Buddhist temple, and I went to the Sikh temple, and where else did I go? Anyway, so I got to see, this stuff up close. And it's funny, they were all, they were all very reverent people across the board. You could tell that the mosque was a little, you could tell there's a little strictness there, and women sit separately and all that stuff, which, for the life of me, I cannot figure out what is so bad about, excuse me, sitting in a house of worship like with your family. That's just kind of my way of looking at things. But when you start separating people, you start separating them in other ways, not only by sex, but maybe by function. Like, all the dishwashing is done by all the women. And I know they didn't have like, bone china back then. But yeah, women were obviously, separated from the very beginning. Oh, and you know what? I have a question too. What if Adam and Eve, what if they really wanted an apple and a snake? What if it was like some other kind of fruit of the poisonous tree or whatever it is? What if it was a really nice, I don't know, inhalable or edible, whatever it was? I mean, why did it have to be an apple? Couldn't it be like anything else? I kind of like apples and applesauce, and I think there's actually another fruit. I think that some fruit producer started this rumor because he wanted to discredit the apple people, the apple lovers. And, there are tons of varieties of apples these days. But I just kind of want a red apple. if it says red, delicious apple, and if it's true, if it's red and delicious, then that's kind of like all I need in an apple. I want to forget the whole, you know, Eve and the apple. And you know why? Because a guy will bite that apple every time. I mean, he's worse than a fish, jumping in a hook. So yeah, guys are just we're just suckers like that. But anyway, we want to know what's like at the grocery store. Are you spending a bit more these days? How are you doing it? Not everybody's got a boatload of money to pay things. In Newport overlooking the harbor here, there are boats and people that would leave the dock if gas was, $100, $1,000 a gallon. It just wouldn't matter. Uh, but I don't think it's like that in the U.S. I keep thinking about, what about the factory workers in Detroit, or how about the businesses and manufacturing plants that have left? I don't know, Indianapolis, and they weren't replaced. They ain't coming back. And and this was the fallacy. We had actually done a good job of resource allocation for the world. We're the most advanced technological country in the world. That ought to be our focus. If other countries like China can produce our everything, our guitars, our cars, our clothes, our everything more cheaply, then shouldn't they do it while the States is free to concentrate on its technological future? And I think that was the notion behind globalization. And it's one of those economic things about economics being allocated where it's needed. So I do think we ought to, I'd like for us to like reconsider that in some way. But anyway, so that's the deal with the Shia and the Sunni. I think Saddam Hussein was a Sunni Muslim because, as I recall, Saddam Hussein was not like a super, militant guy. And the truth of it is, most of these guys are just kind of happy to run their country and rule over their people with an iron fist. They'll kill a Kajayyan. What the hey, there's more where they came from. So the Iranians devaluing of life to as an acceptable policy to stay in power is contrary to all that's right and good in the world. I mean, at some point, don't people deserve to have a say in who leads them? Now, I think that was like the basic notion of democracy. How about we put up your guy versus my guy, and whoever gets the most votes wins? And again, that worked really well until that worthless orange POS came on the scene. So he's the instability that comes with a personality type like that is ruinous for a country, and it's clearly left us behind in the world, because as we have withdrawn from obligations and withdrawn from friends and withdrawn from cooperating, we are, we're no longer number one. And I always had a notion that, why is that? I had always had a notion that what was I saying? Oh, anyway, I'm sorry. Got a little headphone, little mic problem. I have no idea what's going on. It's seems to kind of flutter in and out, but I have against all odds, I've managed to assemble this thing properly, and we'll be able to prove it to you when we start having a few more regular interviews, and we're gonna start branching out to the Inland Empire. And what we'd really like to do is to chat about what is wrong with us. Guys, I can't imagine that being like a cheap cable or something, but the mic is just so sensitive, and right now it's never really been like that. Mm, well, but we are monitoring directly, so let's keep plugging away through this, and soon these technological glitches will magically disappear again, much like inflation and high prices. They will magically disappear. One day they will be gone. Uh, yeah, and the problem is they may be gone and replaced with something even worse. I tell you, but Daniel, let's get back to the old New York Times and maybe get a little more New York Times, a little less Abby Kaufman. But oh, and this is good. California is suing Amazon, saying they conspired to raise the prices of competitors to force the people into the lower Amazon purchase. Now, I don't know about you, but that just seems a little unfair. What if the price was just there and you picked, if you want the cheapest one, well, just pick that. If you want the most expensive one, pick that. But I don't think that's playing fair. And in America, we have this thing called traditional notions of fair play and justice. And I don't think the game was designed to be played like that. Playing that kind of a game that aggressively is uncalled for in a society like ours, where we're trying to be that nation of shopkeepers that what's his name said we were way back when. Um, Now we're no longer a nation of shopkeepers, but at least we're a nation of some technology. And if we can ever get back the research scientists we lost, they got fired, and the institutional brain power that was fired, like, and this is the rule and not the exception. This is Pretty Boy Pete Hegseth firing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, whoever he was, and that just and if I'm not mistaken, we're like in a war, and he fires the top guy. That's uh, that's beyond stupid. You know what that is? That's downright delusional. I mean, stupid is bad enough, but delusional is a whole different ballgame. And I clearly think, and I would suspect most of you agree with me, that the belief in things that are not objectively verifiable are delusional. They're not grounded in reality, and I'm going to actually think about that too. Not grounded in reality. If you're not grounded in reality, you might not accept the fact that you can't walk on water, and that if you do walk on water, you probably would be better off if you knew how to swim, because you ain't gonna walk on it more than a step or so. Uh, but yeah, they're just, and it comes back to the clergy, and at least I think it does. For ages, you had a largely educated clergy in Europe, where settlers, colonials came from. Uh, you had the Anglican Church. You had, and this was called the Christian Church until it became the Catholic Church, and the Catholic means universal. Just for whatever little tidbit of knowledge I thought you know. Okay, so you got and the institutions in the Middle East. You've got Judaism. You've got Islam. In the Far East, you've got Taoism. You've got all this stuff, right? But then you get the exception, What about the Rocket Man moon guy in Korea? Now his folks actually believe that his family is divine and is God on earth. So being safe, pretty much gets what he wants. When you're God, I mean, what a gig, huh? I, you know, I don't think you're. I don't think you'd have a care in the world or want it. I mean, you might care about something, but as God, you could definitely afford to pick and choose your battles. So anyway, back to the delusions. Uh, and I've had to tell people that keep telling about about the 2020 election being rigged and stolen, all this stuff. I'm like, don't you think there's a reason that was called the big lie? I mean, there's evidence. There's evidence. Evidence provided by Republicans. Uh, and yet people don't believe. And I'm not going to say it's notorious to the South, but continuing on that, why I always think it's clergy. You've always had an educated clergy in Europe and the Middle East and China and all that. But let's fast forward to the good old US of A, where we made sure to give the Indians the blankets that coincidentally had the pox on it. So anyway, so we're here, and the colonials get off the boat and all that, and they the first few colonials and settlers obviously brought ministers with them to start local churches, and because America was founded on, let's hear it, freedom of religion. People didn't want to be forced in England to be members of the Anglican Church or else. And a lot of other religions weren't particularly or just showed a bit of intolerance to those who wanted to be the least bit independent. So anyway, back to the colonies. So of course you get the settlements along the coast because that's where the boat stopped. And then as population starts to grow, people start migrating inland. And I'm going to concentrate on the South for this one, particularly Georgia and South Carolina. And so what happens is, because the trade routes and the general town function, you have where people actually lived and had churches and hospitals and social institutions. People with that money didn't have that option. They had to keep moving inland and further inland. So they have these little settlements and the upstate use of the mountains, and I forgot if it's the Blue Ridge or Smoky Mountains, whatever it is. But in those sorts of places, there's limited people of limited intelligence with limited social institutions like churches and all this. So what happens when you ain't got a church and you ain't got a minister and all that? That's right. You pick one of your own. You have a self-ordained minister. Now, the problem between being a self-ordained minister and an ordained minister is who exactly did the ordaining, right? You can't. And aren't you kind of likely to maybe misinterpret something? I mean, you're don't get sound like you had any training in this deal. And that's usually how people tend to learn things by doing, and you've never, you must have read the Bible. What if you took the wrong conclusion? And then started spreading it. Why? Because you were the only clergy, and or you were the only clergy they had, and then it was like make believe. So of course this sets in motion delusional ideas. Oh, one of my favorites, I love this one, is the snake handlers. I forgot who all does that. But there's a cult of snake handlers, and these are poisonous snakes. So, you're dead fairly soon, minutes after a bite. And so the deal is, an educated minister tells the uneducated flock. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh so hard. Tells the uneducated flock of parishioners that they should have no fear of handling the poisonous rattlesnake because I love this rationale because the spirit of God will protect you. And you, of course, you know, person A grabs snake, and person A gets bitten and dies. So he clearly wasn't protected by the Spirit of God. And as you do a little research, you'd be surprised if people actually, you know, did not survive because they were not protected by the Spirit of God. And it seemed to me as though they were pretty much protected from the Spirit of God until they started handling that snake. And once you once you go down that road, heaven help you. But let's hear what you have to say. Give us a call, 949-629-3820 at the Democracy Radio Network. I am Abby Kaufman, your somewhat savvy, politically minded host, and we'll be broadcasting from noon to 4 Monday through Friday Pacific time, or get this, or until my voice gives out, because it's actually a little difficult to keep rolling for 4 hours, even with the occasional call of nature break. Okay, and back to the news. How about this? The Nepalese ask if a revolution can deliver on hope. Now, Nepal is right next door to India, and I find that my favorite Indian restaurant is run by some guys from Nepal, and they're just the best. You know, great food. A little dingy, but great food and reasonable. And they're just fine people. And I'm going to tell you something, just as an aside from all this. You won't. I particularly am in awe of the Sikhs and their religion, their beliefs. They have a holy book like everybody else. But what makes them unique in my book is the reverence they show towards those that have made major contributions to the civilization, and those are called gurus, and all a guru is a revered figure or a revered book or a revered something. And the Sikhs have, I think, 10 of these people. And one of them was victorious in war. Another was a great scientist. That moved things forward. And on top of that, you've seen the Sikhs wear turbans, and the turbans they're considered crowns that they were. And head coverings are not uncommon, right? But that's their crown. And if you run into a Sikh, the proper greeting is to bring your hands together like this, nod your head slightly, and say Sat Shri Akal. Or if it's an older man or woman who deserves a lot of extra respect, it's Sat Shri Akal Ji. And exactly what that means, I don't know. I just know if you do that, you will get a warm return greeting. I'm sure you've noticed, Sikh doctors that you didn't see before. And, they're great. Money is the last reason a Sikh would ever do anything. If it was not an inherently good deal that took them one step closer to the one light, they just wouldn't do it. And I applaud that these days. Those guys have reputations going back centuries for honesty. And I think Sikhism came about, fairly recently, maybe 500 years ago. And I used to have preconceived notions as to religions that were founded, after the, and by the way, it's not the Old Testament, the New Testament, it's the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible. Because if you have a New Testament, that presupposes an Old Testament that's connected, and there's no relationship in these things. So just another little semi-religious factoid I'd want to throw in there. And so anyway, in Nepal,
they have a government largely made up of like 20 and 30 somethings. Okay. And this is their big chance to deliver. Can they? Will they get any help? For God's sake, I hope so. In the pre-Trump days, we would of course help anybody you know that we thought worthy. And now it's well, we don't mind helping, but have a little donation to the old ballroom. So it's just this. Believe me, the swamp did not get drained. The swamp got the swamp had a very severe immigration problem. I guess would be the best way to put it. So I mean, I guess those criminals are people too. And this is the kind of devastating thing I mentioned. Wary of the U.S., middle powers forge new ties. Now think about it. Wary of the United States, people are afraid. And like I said, what does that do, particularly on the bond market? Well, it makes people not want to buy our bonds. And if you have people bidding for your bonds, guess what? You got to pay those fewer people a higher interest rate to get them to buy, as opposed to the U.S. could always, in the past, borrow at a relatively low interest rate because they only needed to provide the minimum interest rate for buyers to still buy. And you can see the that inverse relationship I always talk about between bonds and prices. And you just it's a shame. You kind of have to know a little bit about economics to live these days. But it's a different world these days, and I'm not sure really what to do about it. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm exactly sure what to do about it. What to do about it is to join any your local Democratic club, get involved, show up at the meetings, put a sign in your yard, donate $10 if you can, some micro donation. Just let people know that this means something to you. So we, of course, got miles to go before we sleep, and what I'm apparently doing something wrong with all the input stuff on the old Scarlet. I have no idea what we're doing right or wrong here. We need to probably reset in some way, but I'm not really sure how we do that. So in the meantime, it's just us and on the democracyradionetwork.com. This is Abby Kaufman, your somewhat savvy political host, and I cannot imagine what I'm doing wrong, but I'm going to keep yatzing around with this as I try to find a solution of some sort. So let's. Oh, you know what? That's somewhat better, isn't it? Yeah, that's now we got it. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I'm not. I may be somewhat savvy politically, but I am completely unsavvy when it comes to technology. And talking about technology, anybody have one of those MacBook Neos yet? I'd love to go see one. And I should do that. The Apple Store is right down the street, but sometimes time is at a premium, and I love doing the show, so nothing comes before the show. We want to give a nice old shout out to our friends at the Del Taco at Superior and 17th. You guys, keep me fed. How about the Hong Kong Express on Harbor Boulevard near Harbor and Wilson? These guys are incredibly reasonable. They give incredibly generous portions, and what can be better than you know good food, cheap, and a lot of it, right? I'm not saying it's gourmet Chinese, but it's clearly passable. kind of like my Italian these days. It's kind of passable. So how about what's going on in Europe? How about the way we're being divorced? And actually, we're not being divorced. We divorced ourselves from Canada and our trading partners. We had a really nice setup with Joe Biden. He was not, whatever you want to say about the guy, and I think he's a largely good man who should be he should be a historical precedent because of his proposal, the Green New Deal, and and Trump's response to the Green New Deal was, if he didn't do it, if he does it, it's good. If anybody else does it, it's bad. I mean, how is that not just the height of hypocrisy? At least I think that's the old right word for it. Who knows these days? Okay, so let's and we were doing a little something with the old Claude AI earlier, and I do think that Claude and Anthropic have a superior AI interface with Claude. I highly recommend Anthropic. So keep an eye on them. Let's see. Oh, this is great. I love this. Epstein finds willing allies. Where? Where does Epstein find willing allies? At Harvard. And I'll tell you guys a quick Harvard University joke, just because I can. And actually, this is a dead true story. This country guy from South Carolina, way upstate in the country, somehow gets accepted to Harvard, and so he's cruising around the campus, and he goes up. Some guy says, "Hey man, where's the library at?" The guy just blows on by him. So he says, "Geez, kind of snobbish." Then he finds person number two, and same deal. "Hey man, where's the library at?" The guy just doesn't even address him, just turns around and walk away. And so finally, and there's always three guys in these true stories. And finally, he comes to the third guy, and the third guy is like, "Hey man, where's the library at?" So the guy goes, hey, this is Harvard. We don't end our sentences in prepositions around here. You want to try again? So, of course, the country guy goes, "Yeah, where's the library at, asshole?" My friends love when I tell that joke, so I thought I'd tell it to you guys. But anyway, Epstein found willing allies inside Harvard. Now, I don't think that Harvard has a majority of students homeless or on food stamps or anything like that. I would wager that Harvard's student body is probably fairly well off, even though MIT had used to make their online courses free, and I don't know if they still do. Of course, it is MIT. But anyway, you gotta try to keep things in perspective as we can. But but yeah, who knew you could run an escort service with young girls and have it be okay? I didn't know it worked like that. And the truth about it is, it might have worked like that for those guys, but you can bet your bottom dollar they can work out for you. Let's take another little sip of the old H2O. And, we had our official democracyradionetwork.com mug and sticker. But of course, I left it in the car because I didn't want to carry a whole lot up. Whoa. I don't think it's. Anybody know if it's supposed to rain outside? Anybody know what's going on in the real world? Give us a call, 949-629-3820, and let us know what you're thinking. And if you're so inclined, a couple of buckaroos for dinner would be more than appreciated. We are a home for Democrats, liberals, and progressive thinkers. We are democracyradionetwork.com is an aggressively pro-Democrat platform. My general philosophy is any Democrat, anytime. We'd love to have you on. If your campaign manager wants to call in and chat, call in. If you're running for council, we'd love to chat with you. And we're going to start reaching out beyond Orange County a little bit to maybe Riverside and maybe Huntington Beach. The truth of it is, we would like to help every Democrat we can. I keep saying this, but it's so true. This is all hands on deck time. And if anybody's ever spent any time on a boat, when it's all hands on deck time, it's serious. Nobody jokes around all hands on deck. This is a big deal. So I don't want to scare you guys, but I would like to know that at least there's a few people that are willing to join the local Democratic club and stuff envelopes and no stuff ballot boxes, stuff envelopes. And it's without as Chad Bianco in Riverside steals the voter ballots as they've done in Arizona and Atlanta and maybe North Carolina, I forgot. So, why is the government like taking the voter records? Well, geez, they say we found some fraud. And we're like, no, you didn't. And they go, yeah, we did. And I'm like, well, how many did you find? 4. You found 4 fraudulent votes, really? I don't know how many. 10 million. So you can see that it's a high government version of a pretextual stop. They make up an offense and then move on it, which is like these stories my mother would tell me about when everybody had these little houses and they're all next door to each other. And anyway, I don't want to dwell on that too long, but back then everyone was kind of neighborly. You didn't have any worries. You knew if somebody took your package in that they were going to like give it to you later. Funny doubt that they might be stealing it, heaven forbid. So anyway, we'll leave beside the Epstein Harvard connection. Money attracts, doesn't it? And it's the thing. Nothing succeeds like success. But anyway, we're moving on to the editorials. And David French's I missed the part about the divine right of the president. Well, I don't think he missed it. He just didn't really pay attention because those conservative guys, for whatever reason, they love the notion of a savior. He can be, a wolf in sheep's clothing, but they love, a savior. And guess who kind of was ready to think of himself as the savior of mankind, or at least the savior of his little corner of it? That's right. The imbecilic orangutan. That's pretty good, isn't it? An imbecilic orangutan. And is the president really wearing leg braces these days? You've got to assume that they have the mindset of the old Soviet Union, and way back when, if Brezhnev had a cold, if the Kremlin said Brezhnev had a cold, that meant he'd been dead for 2 weeks. So, and it'll probably be like that with Trump. The president's under the weather. Oops, he died 2 weeks ago. Again, the fact of the matter is these guys just are pathologically not wired to tell the truth. And, when they want to put Trump on the pedestal with Jesus and all that, and you've got conservative people saying that Trump's rise was made possible by Jesus's crucifixion and resurrection, all that. And I'm just a little too simple-minded to get that. Just doesn't seem quite right to me. How about you guys? Can you, yeah, what's that old deal? Don't pee on my leg. Tell me it's raining. Well, and in the literal sense of the word, that's exactly what's been happening. Trump has been peeing on you and telling you it's raining, and you believed him. So just a little thought that you might want to reconsider going forward. I've been able to meet a few local politicians at local Democratic Club meetings. I joined the Newport Beach Women's Democratic Club, and I have to tell you, I would join every women's club they would let me, but so be it. So at the Newport Beach Women's Democratic Club, the Laguna Beach Democratic Club, and the Costa Mesa Democratic Club. And at the most recent Costa Mesa Democratic Club, a city council candidate spoke, actually to Dr. Kelly Brown and Kara Stewart. And I think, if I remember right, Kelly is representing District 5 and Kara is District 3. But my point is, actually, those two are my point. Kelly, Dr. Brown, whatever you want to call her, she is bright, knowledgeable. She has experience doing things that, that are really hard, involving large budgets and allocations and customer service to some degree. And, not on top of that, she's driven, she cares. Her family has been a public servant in some form or other since the Civil War, or as the Southerners call it, the war between the states. And, sometimes in life you meet people that are the real deal. And if anybody looks at Kelly's background, you would be hard pressed to find a more perfect candidate for a position. And she cares. I mean, isn't that kind of what's missing in politics these days? A genuine notion of caring for others, or I think that she is far and away the leading candidate, and the truth of the matter is, I hope she is in politics for a while. Her life and her family's lives have always been about doing what's right and good. And think about that. That's, we're coming up on 200 years since 1861 and the war between the states, the Civil War, whatever it was. It's time we learn some lessons. And as if that weren't bad enough, I can't touch on that period of history without mentioning how criminal the Jim Crow laws were. I mean, slavery was bad enough, but sometimes you can't. I've always thought, to have a productive society, people should not be kept down or out for any given reason. And yet the Republicans keep finding ways to uninvolve people voluntarily or involuntarily. For instance, these voter roll pushes to examine, clearly a pretext to weed out as many eligible voters as they can. Cheating's just bad. And the Republicans do not apparently know any other way. They act in complete disregard of and ignorant of the Constitution. I heard Todd Blanche say the other day that the president ought to be able to keep his own records, regardless of the Presidential Records Act requiring them to be turned over to Congress is unconstitutional. And we're like, what? That's a stupid argument. The reason that Congress has oversight is because of the three co-equal branches of government, and Congress is the legislative body. You can't just take stuff when you leave the White House. It's not yours. It was never yours. Everything was the American people. So let's kind of straighten up and fly right here. And, I do kind of wonder what a nice cold beer would taste like. It's Taco Tuesday, and I usually hit Taco Mesa for their veggie tacos. And if I'm not mistaken, they're like half price on Taco Tuesday. I think they're like $5 a piece. Regular, but excuse me, but $2.50 or so on sale on Taco Tuesday. So anyway, we may have to go to an old Taco Mesa a little early and eat there between 4 and 5 and kind of get a little head start. And if that doesn't work, I've got to go up to the post office. We'll just kind of munch on something later as time permits. I do have to say that this gas situation is getting a little expensive. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be able to pay for it, but it's not something I'm enjoying one bit in the world. And who in the world, didn't see the Iranians closing the Strait of Hormuz? They've been threatening this for ages. What did you think was going to happen? Guess what? Close the strait. And, as I look around at, what's going on, it still looks to me like the Iranians kind of have the upper hand here. I mean, they say closed, open, closed, and you get this orange imbecile trying to respond. And oh, by the way, let's give us a call, 949-69-3820, and we'd love to hear from you or hit the donate button. Now, let's see, where were you? But yeah, I mean, he's just an orange imbecile. So, you can't, and everybody knew it. I'm thoroughly amazed at how people will not believe reality and not believe facts. And the converses that is, I can't believe how much lying works. Okay, so David French, I missed the part about the divine, right? And how about that? And his spiritual advisor. Can you imagine Trump? Spiritual advisor. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the ships at sea. How about Trump reading from the Bible tonight on television? Now, can I repeat that? How about Trump reading a Bible passage on TV tonight? Now, you see, some things deserve applause, and some things are just incredulous. Sometimes you applaud, and other times you just laugh at someone. And when you're a buffoon, you get laughed at. And I tell you, it's funny in the 2024 election. And I swear this was how I analyzed the situation. You had this stupid frat guy going up against the smartest girl in the room, Trump and Kamala Harris. How people can still justify voting for Trump is something that I found they do, but they do it based on a misperception or a misunderstanding or a complete ignorance of the underlying facts. Some people think that January 6th was an inside job, despite what year or so of congressional testimony in their hearings. It was objectively presented evidence, and people refused to believe it. And, that's the equivalent of refusing to believe the earth is round, refusing to believe that 2 + 2 is 4. Uh, it's just going back to an age of ignorance. And again, you can't be surprised because you have a president who ignores the facts in the briefings and proceeds to make a decision depending on his gut. His guts could tell the world whether it's right or wrong instead of like some objectively written out and gamed out scenario. Truth really is stranger than fiction, guys. You couldn't. I mean, I would love to be able to make this stuff up, but I just can't. It's just after a while, don't you guys run out of excuses? How much longer are you going to tolerate this idiot? Will you still tolerate him when China and Japan start dumping our bonds and we have to pay an absurdly high interest rate? And by the way, high interest rates are something you would rather receive. You don't want to pay. But the guy went bankrupt in a casino, so he probably needs a fair amount of education. Oh, and going back to this whole educated clergy thing, that's what makes the Trump Pope dynamic so intriguing to me. Trump knows more about any given subject than anybody else. Okay. And apparently that includes he knows more than the Pope about morality. And I think that's another one of those incredible moments where you cannot believe a word the guy says. And if you cannot believe the word a guy says, then he does not belong in American politics. We need to have officials that that are honest and that we're proud of. I don't see that in this in these nepotism or semi-nepotism or quasi-nepotism loyalty pledges that Trump extracts from people. Again, it was all obvious, guys. Why you voted for him? I'm just absolutely astounded. But can I say we're here now? We have to deal with this reality the best we can. And I do think one of the secret sauces to dealing with this reality is Democratic Party involvement on the local grassroots level. You'll have an opportunity. As a matter of fact, I can pretty much tell you this is an unparalleled time in U.S. history. And I will also tell you that, rise and shine. Your country needs you. We need you to help restore what is good and right about America, about being able to come to the country, about maybe working really hard, putting a son or daughter through high school, maybe scraping by through scholarships and just God knows how to send a child to college. And let's say the child goes on to grad school and becomes a very substantial contributing member of society. And they go ahead to buy houses and cars just like everybody else. And that's what keeps the economy humming, which is an incredible fallacy in Trump's argument, is most people just want to be like everybody else. They just want to make enough to pay rent or mortgage and the car and the gas and and help your kids, because don't forget the kids, you owe everything to your kids. They didn't exactly they didn't negotiate their being here. And on the subject of negotiating, please God tell me if there's anyone out there within the sound of my voice, which is worldwide, anyone just tell me how this level of insanity is able to go on. It's just astounding to me. So anyway, let's get rid of the orange imbecile, please, guys. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is really good. How much is the second Trump term damaging America's credibility in the world? Well, you would have to assume a pretty good bit. So, anyway, and I'm going to cap off the New York Times editorials with something glaringly obvious, but the foundation of yet more lies. And, when you got a movement built on lies, that's clearly not a solid foundation. And without a solid foundation, things tend to go away. Let's hope this goes way quicker. But the last editorial I want to mention from the Times is child care as a must for the military. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's kind of necessary for everybody. Short of independently wealthy, being able to literally stay at home and raise your own child. But those days are you might see plenty of people doing it in on the coast, but you get inland, you get rural, and there's no financial infrastructure. There's no steady employment, and tourism is good and bad. Tourism was really good until COVID hit. Too didn't have any tourists. And oh, by the way, what if all those foreign tourists stay home for the Olympics and I say I'm in Southern California. What if that happens? And again, so I'm going to try to get a little more comfortable here, is you can't call it unexpected. All this stuff, you knew it had to happen if you followed Trump's policies, and that's there's a whole lot to be said after that. Every reputable economist in the world told us his policies would bring stagflation and high unemployment. And stagflation is stubbornly high inflation. But you know what? I think that the position of Republicans is, oh, don't worry, Trump is right about everything, and this will all work out, just like COVID, and it'll just disappear. And when everybody promises your worries will disappear, I think that's just about time to grab that old lube, because you can rest pretty well assured he's going to slip you the chubby, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, know what I mean? And nobody likes to have the chubby slip to him. Trust me, but if you want to slip the chubby, you can give us a call at 949-629-3820. DemocracyRadioNetwork.com. I am your somewhat savvy political host, Abby Kaufman, coming to you live and in color, which is the preferred way, from his undisclosed location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. And I've got I still keep in touch with a lot of my friends from around the country, and from what I hear, nobody's enjoying this. And trust me, if Southern California doesn't enjoy it, it's really bad. Southern California was, actually, probably Hawaii was the first, hang loose, be happy, bro, Jamaican, whatever it was. But those guys were probably on drugs, so let's temper the lessons learned. Oh, God, we're dry today. Oh, and another thing, I want to give a shout out to Anna at Sprouts on 17th Street in Costa Mesa. My usual go-to is a vegetarian sandwich on multigrain bread with lettuce, tomato, onions, avocado, peppers, and excuse me, or instead of just worrying about the individual veggies, I just put this little note at the bottom: all veggies, please. And for $4.99, the low price of $4.99, you too can enjoy a freshly made sandwich by Anna at Sprouts on 17th Street. And then while we're talking about food, there's a really great little dive I like in Costa Mesa. So in a little strip center called the Vista Center at the intersection of 19th and Placentia. And it's become an interesting place. You can tell the neighborhood's starting to be up and coming. And, there's like a trendy wine bar and, then the trendy wine bar say it all. So anyway, across the street from the trendy wine bar is a Mexican restaurant called La Lomita. And I think that means Little Hill or something, but, again, God only knows. And my point is that I like seafood and I like real seafood. For instance, I like seafood that kind of vaguely resembles what it looked like. I want my shrimp tacos to have shrimp that looks like shrimp. I want to be able to believe that it was swimming not super long ago. And of course, those kind of delusions are such that you can't just go like get a shrimp taco at Del Taco. Even when the kids tried to tell me how good it was, I'm like, you wouldn't know a shrimp that bit you, like a real, brown shrimp that you get in the South, or the Argentine pink shrimp, or some of the ones in the Gulf. Charleston Harbor was just littered. Oh, it was just carpeted with shrimp and crab and all that. All you had to just, cast your seine net. But like I say, those days are come and gone, and it's up to us to blaze a new trail. So anyway, let's see what other worthless pieces of information we have. This is the section is called Straight, STRAIT, tension. Talks doubt as the deadloom nears. Now, I am sure they're talking about the talks between U.S. and Iran in Pakistan. And by the way, just so you guys know, Stan means land of. So if you got like Afghanistan or Tajikistan or mother father Stan, you kind of get how this thing works. So the next, let's keep these cards and letters coming, folks. Oh, how about this? German Chancellor Merz lashes out at Unicredit's hostile tactics in the Commerzbank takeover. And you know what? That's their problem. And I mean, it will be connected to ours just, because the worldwide market for debt instruments like securities and bonds. But, we're just kind of shine that on for the time being. And this is good. On the front page, the New York Times was a big picture of Lebanese women holding signs of remembrance of relatives that were killed, and the caption is "Mourning the Dead in Southern Lebanon." And the picture on the front page of the Financial Times is that of a helicopter gunship with a gun, and the helicopter is maybe 1,000 feet in the air, and he's got his gun pointed at a tanker off in the distance. So, the war is clearly making front page headlines around the world, and it's doing it again for all the wrong reasons. And when you articulate a cajillion reasons for a war, you articulate no reasons for a war, and it's obvious. You can tell there's no plan in place. There's no forethought. And you know why there's no forethought? There's no forethought because that requires thinking and information and analyzing. And we all know there's a couple of things Trump don't do. It's taking in information and analyzing. the preferred choices, to go with his gut. That just seems like a losing deal for everybody. But sometimes some people are just so stupid they don't know how stupid they are. Well, I think the man who pretends to know it all is probably the most stupid around. Uh, we just need to get rid of him, guys. Please join a club where someone work really hard. And after you join your club, give us a call at 949-629-3820 and let us know what you think of your local Democratic club. Do you see yourself being active long term? Is this just a one off, let's get the bum off the field scenario? We want to know what you have to say. Like our sticker says, silence is compliance. So you need to shout louder. You talk and we listen, because I can pontificate all day and all night, but there's a lot to be said for having an active audience call in to 949-629-3820 and just let us know what's going on in your world. Going back to, let's dive back into the old Financial Times, because they just deserve the time. They had a feel good story. The old poet, the English poet Keats, wrote some love letters, and a book of those love letters were among some rare books that were kind of returned to their rightful owner after 40 years. And would you like to know how that happened? We thought you'd never ask. It happened when somebody tried to sell them, I guess, to an antiquarian book dealer. And you can, if you think the art world is tight, the antiquarian book world is really tight, especially in the market for these sorts of things. I think the two books sold for like maybe 3 million or so, which strikes me as being a fairly good return on a book that got stolen 40 years ago. And anyway, it's back to its rightful owner. They made a little money, and life goes on. But the inset, there's another inset at the bottom of the Financial Times. And this inset has this quote with a little picture. Ukraine drone pilots wage war from the safety of a desk. And I don't know if you guys know this enough, but the Ukrainian drones have a range of 500 kilometers, which should be around 300 miles. So think about that. These guys can sit back and watch the drone fly for a couple hours to get wherever it's going, and then guide it right through the open window. And these are the Ukrainians that Trump threw out of the Oval Office meeting. And Ukraine has some corruption. Thank God it's nowhere near our level of corruption. But they're not perfect. But they are reliable. They were always reliable for us. The problem was we weren't reliable for them. Zelensky offered drone help to our war effort. Now, keep in mind, this is the same Volodymyr Zelensky that got yelled at and thrown out of the office by Trump and J.D. Vance. And like I said before, the second Trump administration is really an experiment of what can happen when the president ignores the founders and the laws and everything else. And when someone doesn't live within the law, by my literary knowledge, when somebody doesn't live by the law, by the rules, that kind of makes them an outlaw and criminal and all that stuff. And I don't really want to get into the merits of judging all this stuff, but I would suggest that that societies, like say always say, are like games. They need rules. Without rules, they cannot exist. And when someone cannot conform their behavior to that which society requires, society has its inherent police powers to apprehend and punish. And of course, we don't want that to get too out of hand. I can't imagine the last time somebody actually applied for a search warrant before searching. You would, again, kind of hope that would go without saying, but these days and times, everything needs to be said and spelled out rather. And let's see here, the Keats Lovelet. Okay. And we'll wrap up the news section with the last two opinions from the Financial Times. And this brilliantly simple observation: the Iranian crisis has not peaked yet. And, on the one hand, obviously, but, how do you define that? And because there are so many things left to be decided. Think about that. We've gone through all this, and we've gotten like my friend Bobby Howe used to say, we got bupkis. And it's worse. Not only did we not get bupkis, we got less than bupkis with higher gas prices and higher inflation and higher everything, reduced standing in the world, reduced markets to sell our goods in the world, poisoning buyer relationships around the world. This guy's just been a disaster, which makes me think that the only conceivable reason to do this is because he is so mad at the United States of America after what the United States of America did to him. Never mind the fact that he was a criminal and he got treated like one. Apparently, that's some sort of unforgivable sin in the Trump world, as to be named a criminal. But again, I think that's a feature, not a bug. I mean, have any of those guys ever turned down $1? Their charitable contributions are, I don't know, how about less than mine? How about that? And trust me, that the assets are a little more substantial. And the last Financial Times editorial was again something glaringly obvious, but you can't say enough. Europe's right wing is pivoting away from the U.S. And I'm going to submit that when former friends move away from the U.S., it ain't a good situation. When you treat people really poorly and act like you don't care, you have no reason to expect anything other than reciprocal treatment. And, you don't, the United States is not an aggressive colonial nation. We don't expand by force. We don't just take stuff. Until you get someone who believes that nothing in the past matters and all that matters is you and what you want. And that's how we get to where we are. And where we are is about about 1:38 on Tuesday afternoon from our undisclosed location on Newport Harbor, Newport Beach, California. This is Abby Kaufman, your somewhat savvy political host, asking you to go ahead and give us a call, 949-629-3820, and let us know what's shaking in your world. How about tuition, about school stuff? Do kids need a little extra money at exam time? We need to start looking at what's valuable and what we treasure, and we don't. Oh, just so you'll have some idea, I don't think we really treasure a national a triumphal arch to ride under. I don't really see where we've been particularly triumphal in a while. Um, the fact of the matter is we're just getting our clock cleaned by the rest of the world. We're just, when people are talking and trading, they're pretty well not fighting. And we had, not perfect arrangements, but we had things set up that even if you could argue they were tenuous, they worked and they held us together. And, things will always work until they don't. And that's what happens when there's no plan B, no backup plan. And you got this always has to be a contingency. And we clearly didn't make one now. So, like I said, as I sit here on April 21st, 2026, we've got, 5 months until November. Is that right? 4, 11, no, 7 months till November. And coincidentally, in around September, we hope to announce our California initiative to have reports in every California region and have broadcast 24/7. And we'll have some really, really cool DJs we hope to, tune in for. But yeah, come September, look for 24/7 coverage from the democracyradionetwork.com. Your host, Abby Kaufman, the Abby Kaufman Show, and God knows whoever host we get in the meantime. Uh, so let's go back to this Bond thing. And, the Bond guys are always the smartest guys in the room. And, when people start dumping your bonds, it's a sharp feeding frenzy. Everybody wants to get out at the same time, and the door aim is so big. So of course your sell market order doesn't necessarily go through the instant you place the order. Your sell order is going to be routed through like everybody else's. So the opportunity for hazards are just all over the place. So guys, yeah, it's closing in on 1:40, and we're gonna take a little break around 2ish because of your old host, the somewhat savvy political commentator Abby Kaufman, is anticipating what can only be called the call of nature. Apparently, my my kidneys, whatever it holds, whatever it is, has decided that you need a little break, and I'm also asked if I still have that little comment that I put on the screen that says answering the call of nature, be back soon. Yeah, that one in case whether you've seen it or not, it's kind of what we use. And let's see what else going on. We haven't had a chance to play guitar a lot lately, and your old Abby Kaufman, political savvy commentator, really misses that. This has been like say about an hour and 45 minutes nonstop chatting, and believe it or stuff it, my throat is getting slightly sore, and I just might have to go wash my hands. Now, if you've been around the block, you realize that washing your hands is not necessarily washing your hands. Washing your hands is an expression when a guy wants to use the men's room. Just like, uh, when women want to use the ladies' room, they go powder the nose. And we always try to be nice and polite, but that's just about how it works out. Let's see here, and we kind of we're missing on getting calls. 949-629-3820. We'd really would love to hear what's going on from you, whether you're in the Redwoods or the Central Valley, Inland Empire, San Diego, LA, Orange County, Central Coast, Cambridge, San Simeon, San Francisco, Carmel, Big Sur. How about Big Sur? So yeah, we hope to be live, like I say, 24 hours a day, starting on September 1st. Just a little bit before the election, just enough time to get everybody primed to work their behinds off of uh, those last 2 months. It's how we got here. I'm not going to dwell on, uh, other than to say that apparently Trump was able to convince enough enough Republicans to vote for him and make the difference. And even though it was Newt Gingrich back in 1980 who started the take no prisoners approach to politics and my way or the highway and that stuff, we need to revere that guy and let him know what a really true worthless POS he is. And the reason you need to do that is sometimes people are such big POSs, they don't really know how big of a POS they are. So it's incumbent upon your somewhat savvy political host, Abby Kaufman, to set the record straight. And let's see, moving right along here. Deal. And we're gonna take a break in just a few minutes, and sorry about that, guys. It was a necessary evil. So, what do you think? What do you think about getting some other hosts in, and maybe we'll have 12 of us with a 2-hour show? Doesn't it sound kind of cool? I think so. We want to have 2-hour shows with an hour of call-ins and we're just kind of chatting about the relevant issues of the day. And like I said, these days and times, you gotta run twice as fast just to try to stay even. That's how quickly things can get away from you. I'm a little conscious about that, and don't really want things to get away from me. So stick with us and give us a call at 949-629-3820. What do they say? What do the kids say? Smash that donate button and smash your way into our hearts and bank accounts with that donation that really keeps us going and keeps that addiction to food, clothing, and shelter from taking over. It's always a little awkward to go at 2. Guys, my day starts around 4 o'clock. I get up and go to the gym. I'm there by 4:30, and gym opens at 5. And I hit the old sauna for my back, and then I jump in the shower because I would hate to jump in my car just feeling like a sweaty rag. So let's get it together, guys. No laziness, no excuses. Any Democrat, and I say remember the philosophy of the Democracy Radio Network. Any Democrat, anytime. We are your friend. We exist to help you get elected. Just tell us what we can do. Where you will have any given candidate, any given Democratic candidate this time, you can just about guarantee to have an army behind them. This is, I honestly thought that the notion got across that 2020 and 2024 were for all the marbles. For whatever reason, that wasn't the message that got out. And that's kind of why we're here. That's exactly why we're here. because people didn't take the warning seriously enough, and they handed the keys, they handed the nuclear code to the stupidest guy in the world. And it's always nice when the stupidest guy in the world and the American president are not the same person. But here we've got a stupid president, an ignorant president. And I can say he's ignorant. Why? Huh? You are exactly right. Because he lies about the facts. I mean, it's just a weasel. Maybe there's a song title on that, just a weasel. Who knows? Only a weasel. I, how about how about just send the weasel anywhere? How about send the weasel away? Send him a long way away. Let's take a little fresh breath in our hair. What about something simple? What about taking a long walk off a short pier? Oh, you know what? If the orange imbecile took a long walk off a short pier, he would get to show everybody how he too walks on water. And I'm going to tell you, at that point, you just might have something. Trump walking on water, spare me. I mean, I'm not really sure about the first guy that did it, much less the second guy. Geez, we're slightly congested here today, so bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Oh, can you believe that? I'm just so congested today. Well, we may not last till 4, but that'll, matter of fact, we may not last till 2. That's only a few minutes away. We'll do our best to see how far we can go. But we'd really appreciate hearing from you guys. 949-629-3820. Who are you backing in your local race? State Assembly? Anybody? I think that Catherine Foley is excellent for supervisor. And let's think about Dave Min. You can't forget, if anybody met Dave, they just would sign up to support him. He's that smart and that caring. And, that's always, the two things, love with your heart or love with your brain. And, it's how I was, how I understood, the English to be, they could do anything. They just couldn't send a bill. And they have other people that really get off on sending the bill. So hopefully everybody's got a hire that keeps them financially solvent. Sometimes there just needs to be one person that looks over the books. Too many cooks really do spoil the broth. But sometimes I think I can appreciate the wisdom of 2 sets of books. And I'm assuming that both sets are identical and equal in every way. I am not proposing any sort of financial fraud. And again, it comes back to credibility. He's incredible because you can't believe a word he says. If that's not incredible, I'm not really sure what is. But I'm just about ready to bet that's the case. What else is going on in the world? Let's see, we got nothing new in the old inbox. That's always a treat. Let's check that. Oh, how about that? The American Legion is doing something. So we don't really do that since we don't drink And I really wish I could. There's nothing like the unwinding feeling of a couple beers or a little alcohol. It's completely different than cannabis. And, some people need at least one vice, and for other people, the more the merrier. So pick a side street and walk on it, folks. This is Abby Kaufman, your somewhat savvy political host from the DemocracyRadioNetwork.com, the Abby Kaufman Show. And listen, going forward, what you guys got plans for the summer? Did you take out a second mortgage to take the family to Disneyland? I would love to see the prices come down in Disneyland, not for any, financial reason, but only to make tickets within reach of most people. And, I hate to say this, but even if you have to do something like PayPal, paying four payments, no interest, try to do something like that if you have to do it at all. Don't pay those guys interest. It's bad enough you had to do this to take your kids on a decent, fun outing. And this isn't like, what do people do? Go like to Mexico in the summer, or whatever it is they do. So most of the people that do that do not have like more than one house. And if there's, the backbone of America that we need to fully recruit and embrace, it is the 330 million Americans, or citizens rather, in California. I don't know how this notion about expanding came about, but the notion of being able to cover Southern California, particularly in the last few months before the election, seems like a really worthwhile goal and plan. Let's hope it turns out like that. Oh God, the old throat's getting like really sore. Oh, the good news is when I do an abbreviated show. How about that? When I do an abbreviated show, because my throat gets sore and my head hurts, my feet stink, and I don't love Jesus in that order. Anyway, we still need to see exactly when Trump is going to read from the Bible tonight. I don't know about you, but I think I kind of want to see this because I would be surprised if he didn't go off script. Reading from the Bible. He may just enjoy it because it's probably the first time he's ever done anything like this before. I mean, he may never have looked at the Bible before. I don't think you would be surprised, would you? Trump to participate in marathon Bible reading. I guess it might be take as long as a marathon because you can't really read. But by the way, anybody having more feelings about those all transcripts from Wharton? Of course, he did not get it through the front door. He transferred from like Cornell or something. If he wanted bright enough to get it in on his own, the first time, I think we can disavow his candidacy. And let's see what else is going on. I cannot get by the marathon Bible reading. But who's to say? Well, what if Stormy Daniels was wrong? What if Trump really wasn't wearing that kind of underwear? What if Trump's penis wasn't as unique as she described? What if his performance in the sack was, how about this? How about unremarkable? How about unremarkable and short? So, like I said, she's swearing what the guy looks like, what his penis is like, and he says, I never saw it before in my life. it's like the guy is incapable of moderating a position. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's better to moderate the position than to get hung out to dry completely. But the Trump method would be to get out to be hung out to dry twice as bad, so you can yell about how bad the Democrats are. And listen, the truth of the matter is, it's not the Democrats' big beautiful bill, uh, and it's gonna be Republicans and Democrats who pay the price. And it's just it was all just so stupid and unnecessary. But that's what stupid people do with a false interpretation of history. History's really good if you pay attention to it. But if you think you're greater than history, then you obviously don't pay attention to it. And the only question is, how far will you fall and how fast will it be? So we kind of like to see that happen a little more. But hey, as it's 2 o'clock, we're getting ready to enter the third hour of Democracy Radio Network, the Abby Kaufman Show. And give us a call, 949-629-3820. What's going on in your world? You're in Orange County, San Diego, LA, Inland Empire? Let us know. We want to know what you're thinking, because this is a critical election. Absolutely critical. And we just can't afford to not play smart and play hard and generally play fair. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what would be so hard. Like in Hungary, where Magyar, who defeated Orban, linked corruption and economic decline. God knows that's pretty much what we have now, isn't it? A little moral and ethical free fall. And we're in a moral and ethical free fall that, what's an expression? But for Trump, we wouldn't be here. Sometimes, and he's 79ish, and God knows he's not like a gym rat. That 6'7", 300-pound bowl of Jello. And I said, when he does get exercise, and actually he does get 2 bits of exercise. He gets exercise when he walks to and from the from the golf ball to the cart. And then he might get a little more exercise when he lifts up that cheeseburger after dinner. That probably wears him out. How his system has survived, we really would like to know, because does it only happen to people that are absolute complete zeros, like the orange imbecile? And just in case, I'm sure you guys know who the orange imbecile might be, right? The orange imbecile just might be, sheer speculation, might just be that that guy in the White House that acts like such a dumbass. Oops. It's funny. Calling somebody dumbass rarely makes the situation better. It's always you go to. It's always what you do first. So let's. But yeah, if Trump reading the Bible, now I do. There's just no way he can say that isn't worth watching. It doesn't. Talk about must-see TV. If NBC used to joke about Friends being must-see TV, what do they say about the President of the United States getting in a fast-moving rhetorical accident? And I think that's, you got to bet on that most of the times with the old orange imbecile. Let's see, feature Tuesday evening, reading a passage. I guess it's, maybe good to finally figures out what kind of stuff is in the Bible. But the son bitch picks a fight with the Pope. And I'm pretty sure the Pope is morally superior. I mean, I haven't heard about old Leo dipping his pen in Company Inc., if you know what I mean. By the way, I don't know if that's a nun thing or a minister kind of thing, but you know, I'm sure you get my drift. You know, it is Taco Tuesday, and as much as I would like to go have a little lunch, I mean, to eat a little something later, I'm kind of conflicted. Uh, but I tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a little break here, and let's see here. Let's put the comments. How about this? Oh, how about this? Let's be right back. Nature call. It's nice when you spell the words right, isn't it? Nature calls. I think that's about the deal. Let's put it up on the screen here. How about that? Let's do that. I'll be right on back. Put the old shoes on.
And how about this, guys? Let's see if we can put those old headphones on. And let's see what kind of broadcast we can do for the last 37 minutes. We'll cut out around 3 o'clock. That's 3 out of 4 hours. That's 75%. In my book, that's what they call substantial compliance. So we will hang in till 3, share whatever we can share, and then take a little time off. No new emails. And yeah, if you don't have new emails, you only have old emails. American Legion Trivia Night and Burger Night. You know, I just don't think that stuff's really good to digest, even though a burglar and onion rings or fries for the low price of 10 buckaroos. You get a hamburger, cheeseburger for $6, and that actually sounds really kind of cheap here, but Alan Rapinski from Armor All used to tell me that one time he had a $10 steak, and God damn it tasted like a $10 steak. So that's just little Alan Rapinski humor for you. Who we do hope is doing well and all that. Alan was the founder of Armor all the way back when, and an old friend of the show and an old friend of Abby Kaufman's, right as you live and breathe. Oh, you know what? We probably could take that Be Right Back Call of Nature thing away, because I returned nature's call, and everything came out okay, which is so old and so corny, but we still use it. Not unlike the Take a Long Walk Off Short Pier, or I wouldn't. Well, we won't go into the others. So this might be a little crude, but can you be too crude on the internet? Well, probably not. For our audience, we do have certain minimal level of civility we like to enforce, and we're not really into the foul-mouthed tirade. I think that whatever's got to be said can be said, without resorting to profanity. At least that's my hope. Having said that, kiss my ass. Just I had to throw that in and see if it worked. And as we approach 226, this is your semi-savvy, or your somewhat semi-savvy, politically minded host, Abby Kaufman, with the Abby Kaufman Show on Democracy Radio Network, broadcasting from 12 to 4, more or less, Monday through Friday. We'd love to have you listen in, and we are a home for Democrats, liberals, and progressive thinkers. And I tell people we are also, get this, wait a minute, sometimes you forget how many actual tools you really have. And like I said, sometimes you forget things like a little random applause for a good idea. And I am proud to say that I do have my finger on the button. And the only thing we really don't want to do is we don't really want to get laughed at. That's not cool. This, of course, have everybody clap for you. Now that's clearly a round of applause in a good moment. And when people kind of laugh at you, it's a little less than what you would hope to hear. How about that? We do try to be a little understated and respect our audience.
Again, this is Abby Kaufman, Democracy Radio Network, and we'd like you to give us a call, 949-629-3820. And what do those kids say? Smash that donate button. And let's give Uncle Abby a new pair of shoes. How about that? Uncle Abby, that's subject to reconsideration. But for the meantime, how about a few coins of the realm for a little bit of clothing? Because if there's three things that your semi-savvy political host is addicted to, it is number one, food, number two, clothing, and number three, shelter. And you know what those old Rolling Stones would say, don't you? Give me shelter. I would if I could, but not everyone's got extra shelter to pass around to friends and neighbors. But if anyone really needed it, I would like to think that they have a friend or relative that would take them in. You can rail against the homeless, you can rail against the immigrants, you can rail against whoever you want. But the overall point is to try to make the U.S. and the world a better place. And, when you have, and to put the world in a better place, you have to put the world's needs and wants ahead of yours. And not to put too fine a point on this, but Donald Trump can't do this. He's pathologically incapable of putting others before himself. And if you're pathologically incapable of putting the interests of others in front of yourself, then you have 339 people at the will of one lunatic. And if he signed his name like Donald J. Trump, LP, lunatic president, I would, at least I would give you some fair warning. Lunatic president, what do you want to say? Imbecile on board. You could go on and on, but the fact of the matter is just not a very bright guy at all. And at 79 years old, and the physical specimen that he is, does anyone think he can out-negotiate anybody or outthink anybody? As a matter of fact, early in this Iran deal, Iran was willing to give the U.S. what it wanted, but the U.S. didn't understand the Iranians' position because they weren't well versed in nuclear technology. So get this: Trump sends guys to negotiate on a subject matter about which they know zero, bupkis. Sarah, I don't, how many words more say? And it just it's just symbolic of the whole. It's symbolic of the whole shambolic way that the presidency has devolved. Let's see, my buddy Rich just called, and let's see what he had to say. Going to see a hematologist. Huh, things are improving. Slow 3 months. Jesus, for all these blood thinners. Jeez. Well, Rich, we're clearly bummed to hear that. Rich has been an old friend for 40-something years. And Rich played basketball in college, basketball scholarship. And I Rich was one of those guys that, incredibly fast, incredibly agile, great shooter, still is to this day. But he's just a little fragile. He would, break a foot or break this, that, and the other. And, I told him, I said, Rich, if you kept playing basketball, you'd wind up crippled. And if you, and since he was recruited by the Celtics and the Cowboys, I told him if he played football, he'd die, they'd kill him. And if he played basketball, he'd wind up as a cripple. So Rich took the extremely bright move of becoming a tax attorney. And the truth of the matter is, Rich is as good as any big firm guy anywhere in the country, regardless of what they charge. He's a sole practitioner, so it's it really is. He eats whatever he kills, whatever he brings in. If he not bringing anything in, doesn't eat, so to speak. So let's hope Rich is healing to the degree he can. Blood thinners and all that. I mean, must mean there's bruises or a clot or something that needs to be dissolved. Either way, that's a fairly uncomfortable thing. I've had a blood clot in my leg before, and it was extremely painful. And matter of fact, I had a Triumph TR6 sports car at the time, 4-speed electric overdrive transmission, and I remember somehow driving with one foot, and I guess to do that, I would have to disengage the clutch, engage first gear, engage the clutch, and somehow get the clutch pedal back in to upshift to second and then hit the accelerator pedal. That's one of those kind of things you probably only do if you're not terribly young and relatively dumb, and I complied on both those counts. So it just hurt like God knows what. So let's hope Rich isn't down for too terribly long. He's, like I said, a really good guy and doesn't deserve this kind of stuff. But you know what Abby Kaufman deserves, don't you? And this is Abby Kaufman, your host at domesticradionetwork.com, the Abby Kaufman Show. And we want you to tune in and give us a call, 949-629-3820, and join the fun. I mean, heaven forbid it should just be, Abby here pontificating by himself, but pontificating just might be the next jump step. Maybe I could go from pontificating to maybe just being a pontiff or pontiffing or whatever that would be. I'd make a lousy spiritual leader of 1.4 billion people. But the good news is I would have to do better than President Trump. What a zero. What a zero. I don't know what it would be in Spanish besides una grande zero. I'm not really sure how we could do less than zero, but it's funny how Trump always runs up with zero. It's like zero intelligence and zero empathy, and he's pretty much got that zero thing down, which is sad and true in and of itself. But that's the reality we have to deal with, and like I said, we know how to deal with it. We know how to win. We know how to tell them to take a hike. There's seemingly the only thing left is the actual delivering of the message and the actual taking of the hike, which would be the long hike off the short pier or long walk off short pier. We really don't care as long as the walk is longer than the pier. Things should end up the way we would like to see. But yeah, this whole Old Testament thing, when people start calling you God, I guess you kind of think you are. And whoever tells Trump he's a god, of course, is how about this? How about heavenly to the flock? So, and like I said, the bottom line is, regardless of whether you believe in that stuff or not, the mere fact that you do it is enough to sow doubt as to what actually might be going on, if anything, in that little brain of yours. So like I said, God only knows, and we'll have to see how things shake out, but you gotta kind of wonder. And I don't want to tease too much for tomorrow's show, but we are anticipating a special musical guest tomorrow, and that would be Wednesday, April 22nd of the year 2026. And stay tuned around noontime. We'll see if we don't have a special guest for you. Maybe a little guitar music interlude. You never know. Uh, but the one thing you do know is that this is Abby Kaufman, your somewhat savvy political host, talking to you from the Abby Kaufman Show, democracyradionetwork.com. Give us a call at 949-629-3820 and let us know what's going on in your world. Let's see, we've got about another 20 minutes or so. So this is your big opportunity to check in with Abby Kaufman at the Abby Kaufman Show, democracyradionetwork.com. And let's see. Trump will read from, I don't know if that's 2 Chronicles or 2nd Chronicles, but I'm not really into that kind of religion stuff. If I could talk to the guy that wrote the book, I might feel a little better. But and things been through so many editions. God only knows how we stand now. I think King James was a while back, and I don't think that the old King James had many things that were. I don't think the old King James had a whole lot of versions since, but you can be pretty sure that somebody along the line saw fit to, how about this, reinterpret or reimagine the Bible so as to eliminate Jesus and put in his place Donald Trump. Now, how's that for a conspiracy for you? People have conspired to eliminate Jesus Christ and install Donald Trump as Lord and Savior. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, that would make exactly one person happy. I think we know who that one person might just tend to be. And as we approach 2:40 on Wednesday, the 21st of April, 2026, it is starting to get remarkably cold in here. Like it's not quite grocery store cold, but it's definitely a little chilled. And if my listeners know anything, it's that old Abby tends to chill easily these days, which is a supreme drag. So let's keep going and hope for the best, at least until 3-ish, and we'll be inclined to check out a little early because 3 hours of a radio show is actually fairly healthy when you're doing it by yourself. And I am the everything for the Democracy Radio Network. We would like to, if you're interested in joining the team as a broadcaster, we'd be happy to see about setting up with your own show, a couple hours a day at least. And that way we envision ourselves as kind of like the feeder team, or what do you call it, the farm team to the major networks. We want to be that semi-pro institution that guides young people from college into a broadcasting job. And we feel as though this live format, emphasizing half call-ins and half political pontificating, is about the right mixture, because in the end, it is about our audience and those who choose to give us a listen and spend a little time with us. I guarantee you we're easily entertained. We entertain people without trying, and we would love to try and make your world a little better. And I can pretty much guarantee that your world will be better if you elect Kelly Brown and Karen Stewart to the Costa Mesa City Council Districts 5 and 3. Again, that's and in particular Kelly Brown. She's just the real deal. At this point in life, when somebody impresses me, they really impress me. And she impressed me with, how did she impress me? With her credentials. She could prove every every achievement she'd made in the workforce can be documented. And she's, she's smart. She's really smart. Um, and she cares and just deserves your vote. Katrina Foley for Orange County Supervisor also deserves your vote because she has proven herself. I mean, the last thing I need to want as a fly by night politician, when I'm involved in politics, it's usually for a fairly long term goal. And I understand working for the duration to achieve that goal. I also understand that my decongestants might be kicking in and might be kind of drawing me out a little bit, so I can hope to make this last 17 minutes and not suffer too terribly much. I'm not really into suffering. A little swing of the old H2O does wonders. So, yes, are you a water drinker? Do you surf? Do you like water? Do you sail? How about a little adult beverage after the sail? Could we go to or should we go to the Shamrock or the American Legion, or how about maybe Lolomita? You see, after getting stopped for having a dim license plate bulb, I'm really nervous about DUI, so I just don't drink and drive as much as I wish I did. Like I said, sometimes just sitting back with a little, what do those old guys call it, a little sipping whiskey. Nice little golden brown buttery rum to kind of smooth the old throat out and ease those vocal cords after 3 hours of pure entertainment and listening to us or listening to me. And where are you listening to me? You are listening to me on the Democracy Radio Network. We are birthplace of Massa. Make America sane again. Wouldn't that be nice? A little sanity. And the reason sanity is so widespread now is Ronald Reagan's fault. He emptied all the mental institutions, threw the people on the street, and then cut the subsidized housing allowance. So not only were mentally ill people thrown out on the street, they were thrown out on the street without any place to stay. So I guess I'll be throwing them out on the street. And everybody praised the Reagan Revolution and all that, but the truth of the matter is that was the root cause of homelessness. And Newt Gingrich's "My way, the highway, everything's a fight" attitude was the beginning of how we get to Donald Trump and make me do it. Isn't that just obnoxious from a grown man? But I'm going to assume that there's a little hardening of the old brain arteries. I think that's cerebroarteriosclerosis. And if there is a little narrowing of the blood vessels onto the brain, then he ain't getting as much as he possibly could get. And I would submit to you that if there's ever a person who needs to get every last brain cell he can get, it is the orange imbecile himself. And now, in this corner, the orange imbecile, who would the orange imbecile fight? God, would he fight Jesus? Would he win? Would he fight David? David clearly, might beat Goliath, but he just ain't gonna beat him 9 out of 10. He might beat him 1 out of 10, but so if you're a smart guy, always bet on Goliath. You won't get much of a return, but you won't lose much either, and you have laughing rights over the people that did lose a boatload of moolah. And now let's take that old 7th inning stretch. And who I don't recall that. I don't know when they started doing that, but that's a really sound idea. And I tell you what else is a really sound idea. Next time you're watching a a baseball game, particularly if you're watching a baseball game live in kind of a nice outdoor setting, like Pac Bell Park or uh, Dodger Stadium. The usual suspects. And it's funny, while I'm on the term usual suspects, isn't Trump a usual suspect in everything? I mean, if there's some wrongdoing or something criminal involved, it does seem like he ain't too terribly far away. And you never, and I guess that's how the arsonist makes money. The arsonist sets the fire, calls the police, gets the reward, and then buys the property at a discount because it's a fire sale. Get it? Fire sale, fire. Okay. Um, the guy's not a mental giant by any stretch of the imagination. We can take this guy down, and we need. I should take this down. I certainly don't mean anything. I mean, we can elect a Democrat president and vice president, but we just, time's a wasting. We really do need to get on the ball and get coordinated and join our local Democratic clubs and start helping with stuffing the envelopes and helping with signs. If you have to make a phone call or convince a person or two that somebody's the right person to vote for, then please hurry. This is clearly a big deal. I guess in modern language they would call it a BFD, but to each his own. And we're certainly not here for any vulgarity or any superfluous vulgarity. The minimal level is perfectly acceptable. We just don't need to go too terribly overboard with that, especially with my old back starting to hurt. And let's see. Oh, excuse me. We are DemocracyRadioNetwork.com live at 2:50, even though we'll probably be signing off around 3 just to just kind of save my back and my voice a little bit. I don't. I've only got one back and one voice, and neither one of them are very good. So we probably need to pay a little attention to that. And when the vocal cords start to go, it's clearly time to do something. If I knew exactly what to do, I would clearly do it. But be that as it may, your old host, Abby Kaufman, your old semi-savvy, politically minded host, Abby Kaufman, is here waiting for you on your phone call at 629-3820. That's 949-629-3820. And we're really curious what's going on in your world. And of course, we want to hear it from you. Unfiltered, what's going on? Tell us. Silence is really compliance. So we need to speak up and shout louder. We need to be the loudest voices in the room. No more of this MAGA. I was always partial to the morons who are governing America again. And I can only hope you see the humor in that too. And as we close in on 2:51, these last 8 minutes could well just be agony. Hopefully not for you. Hopefully just for me. I don't want to agonize any of my listeners by being unresponsive or unkind. Well, we had to take a few decongestants to dry out the post-nasal drip that always drives me crazy. Plus, in the meantime, tomorrow will be Wednesday, the 22nd, and hump day, I guess. And tomorrow we'll be set up early, and we will join you at noontime on the DemocracyRadioNetwork.com. We are your home to Democrats, liberals, and progressive thinkers. And I always remind people, we are the birthplace of Massa. Make America sane again. In other words, we're ready to recognize that, Trump has a mentally harmful effect on everybody. We just want to keep it contained. And we feel that by letting women come out to certain other events that they're able to mourn in their own way. And it's just nice that in times like that, it's really nice to be able to give someone a little sanctuary. And, we don't expect everybody to sit back and be thankful for every little thing. But we would like to expect some level of civil discourse and civility between everybody. I'm clearly not betting on that, but it's one of those things that would be really nice to see. Uh, and as we approach 254, we may just kind of call it a break and call it a day here on 3 hours is just so much and there's a good bit to talk about. And like sometimes the old throat just gives out a little early. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and log off and thank everybody for tuning in today and tell everybody that this is Abby Kaufman, your host of the Abby Kaufman Show, live on democracyradionetwork.com, streaming live from 12 to 3 or 4 more or less. And we invite you to come back and join us and let us know what's going on in your world. Are there any city council or state assembly members you'd like us to plug? My basic philosophy is any Democrat, anytime. We want nothing but to help elect Democrats, and what? And more Democrats. Okay. It's like 2:55 and I'm starting, the no post nasal drip starting to get really bad. So we're going to go ahead and sign off for Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. And like I said, this is Abby Kaufman coming to you live and in color on the democracyradionetwork.com on, are you ready for this? In a stunning fit of originality, Abby Kaufman is the host of the Abby Kaufman Show. So guys, take care, stay well, think good thoughts, and be sure and check in with us tomorrow. Thanks guys. Adios. And that is